The city is ravaged by an epidemic of instant white blindness, but among all the blind, only one-sighted woman remains. The story begins in a crowded city, where in the middle of traffic, a young Japanese man is suddenly blinded. As a result, he blocks all the cars behind him, and people begin to get nervous, unaware that the guy has suddenly been blinded. With the horns of other frustrated drivers causing a commotion, several people approach the Japanese man. The blind man asks to be taken home, where his wife will help him. One of the people offers to drive him home. In the car, the blinded man describes what he sees as an expanse of dazzling white, or as if he was swimming in milk. After arriving at the Japanese man's luxury apartment, as soon as the blind man gets out of the car, the guy in the car parks the car and helps the blind man into the apartment. As they were about to go inside, the driver made sure that he was really blind. After entering the apartment, the guy walked away with the car keys and stole them. Later, the wife also arrived and found her husband on the couch with a hand injury. He told her that he had gone blind, and she immediately set out to find a competent doctor. His wife took him to a local ophthalmologist. Among the doctor's patients are an old man with a black eye patch, a woman with dark glasses, and a boy. After examining the man's eyes, the doctor cannot identify anything wrong with his vision and recommends further evaluation at the hospital. Later that evening, we see that the carjacker is shot blind, abandoning the Japanese man's car as he runs down the street. During a dinner with his loving wife, the doctor told her about the strange case of sudden blindness that struck the Japanese man. He stated that he had never encountered such a strange case and still didn't feel that the Japanese man was lying. The strange blindness continues to spread through the city. The woman in the dark glasses, revealed to be a call girl, becomes the third victim of blindness after a date with a client at a luxury hotel. The next morning, the doctor woke up and realized he was blind. His wife could not believe it and tried to help him. The doctor realized that he could infect her as well and told her to move away. She decided to stay close to him anyway, and after a couple of hours, they called an ambulance. After the ambulance arrived, the wife joined her husband, lying that she was blind. In various locations around the city, many other citizens are affected by this blindness, causing widespread panic, and the government organizes a quarantine for the blind in an abandoned asylum. The doctor and his wife arrive first at the asylum and decide to keep the fact that she can see a secret. Later, the married couple is joined by the call girl, the car thief, the Japanese couple, and the young boy. A fight initially breaks out between the Japanese and the car thief, but the doctor separates them and effectively takes over the ward. Then the doctor's wife helped the other patients walk through the asylum. She helped them get to the bathroom, but the thief kept touching the call girl and she hit him, severely injuring his leg. In the meantime, the young boy couldn't hold it in any longer and pissed himself. Since the asylum is abandoned, the bathroom conditions are lousy. Later, while resting on the beds, the doctor's wife said she was afraid she would wake up blind and couldn't fall asleep. The next day, more patients arrived, and the Japanese man was joined by his wife. While they were bringing in more patients, the doctor and his wife asked for help and medicine for the thief with the leg wound, but the guards ordered them to return to the ward or they would shoot. The government takes care of the patients by bringing them food and providing each ward with an emergency phone to communicate with the outside world. Despite this, many requests for help go unheeded. As time goes on, the asylum begins to fill up with more and more patients. The doctor's wife takes care of them, teaching them how to find their way around the asylum. As they cooperate and work together, they begin to fix up the bathroom so that they can use it normally. Then the doctor's wife, who continues to remain sighted, meets the old man with the eye patch, who describes the condition of the outside world. The sudden blindness, known only as white disease, is now international, with hundreds of cases reported every day. Scientists and other experts have yet to find a cure and continue their research every day. Desperate, the totalitarian government resorts to increasingly ruthless measures to try and stop the epidemic. In addition, the blindness caused numerous traffic accidents. People stopped driving cars and the roads became deserted. Before long, as more and more blind people are crammed into the fetid prison, the overcrowding and total lack of any outside support prompt people to go outside for help. In this way, some people end up getting shot for coming out of the quarantine. The doctor's wife, still sighted, asked for a shovel to bury the dead. She continues to pretend to be blind so as to not be taken away from her husband. The doctor proposes to distribute the work evenly, so each ward should bury one dead person. Also, he pointed out the fact that one ward was eating more food than expected, and therefore, some people were not eating enough. Some of them didn't want to cooperate and didn't pay any attention to the doctor's words. It was a difficult time for everyone. In fact, the doctor's wife had a breakdown when she realized she had forgotten to adjust her timepiece. That night, the thief with a leg wound came out and got shot by a guard. The next day, patients continued to collect and bury the dead. Living conditions further degenerated when an armed clique of men, led by a former bartender who claims to be king of the Third Ward, gained control of the meager food deliveries. The gang will only distribute food in exchange for valuables, such as watches and jewelry. Although they collected a large amount of jewelry, the armed blind men distributed less food than was actually needed. There wasn't enough food for everyone, so they had to share. The doctor was frustrated by the fact that armed blind men were bullying and not giving out enough food. Hungry and desperate to no longer be able to take care of himself, the doctor turns to the woman in the dark glasses in a moment of true weakness, and they have sex. They both regret it later, and even more so when they hear the doctor's wife speak, knowing that she witnessed the process. Even though the doctor's wife no longer trusts her husband, she still stays to help him, and eventually forgives both the woman and her husband. There are no more valuables to collect, and now the head of Ward 3 asks for women in exchange for food. One by one, the desperate women volunteer to be sex slaves for the men in Ward 3. The head of Ward 3 rapes the doctor's wife, while the other girls become victims of violence. The next day, the women bring a girl to the ward who didn't make it the night before. The next day, 7 more women are brought to the Third Ward, and in the process, the doctor's wife kills the king of the Third Ward with her scissors. The doctor learns of this and is afraid that the death of their leader will start a chaotic war between the wards. At this point, they decide to go in the evening to get food from Ward number 3, but in the process, someone starts a fire. They go out soon after, and the woman begins to call the guards. Then she realizes that the military has abandoned their post. Now they are free to venture into the abandoned city. The entire population is blind in a devastated city, infested with vermin and overrun with corpses and garbage. The doctor's wife leads her husband, the Japanese couple, the old man, the woman with dark glasses, and the boy through the crumbling streets in search of food and clean clothes. Leaving her friends in the relative safety of an old cafe, she and her husband go in search of food. They reach a supermarket full of blind people looking for food. The woman finds a closet full of food and packs it into bags. As she prepares to leave and meet her husband outside, she is attacked by hungry people sniffing the food she is carrying. Her husband, now used to his blindness, rescues her so they can return to their friends. In the following scenes, we can see that the dogs, in their hunger, end up eating the dead bodies. It begins to rain outside, and people happily go out into the street to wash up. The doctor's wife reveals to the others that she can still see. The doctor and his wife with their new family eventually return to the doctor's house, where they establish a permanent home. As in the asylum, the woman takes care of them, helping them wash up. One night, while making love, the doctor says he can see her through his touch. The next morning, as they eat breakfast, the Japanese man recovers his sight. This gives other people hope that their blindness will resolve as quickly and inexplicably as it came. As the others celebrate, the doctor's wife stands out on the porch, staring at a white sky, thinking she was going blind, until the camera pans down, revealing the cityscape before her. Click here to find out how 2 teenagers created the perfect girl with a computer.